My name is Ashley and I am a nurse. I graduated last year from college and got my first job in a mental asylum institute. I really liked my job. Being a nurse allows me to help others. It gives me a very fulfilling feeling. Usually I work during day shifts, but one evening one of my colleague nurse came to me and requested me to cover up for her night shift. I accepted without thinking much, as she was a nice lady and moreover helped me many times. I checked on the patients and went back to my cabin. Within 2 minutes, a nurse came running to me. Room number 11 patient is missing, she said. I hurriedly called the security and went out in search of him. That's when I noticed light coming from another nearby building. It was unusual because that building was empty. My co-workers told me it was used as operation theater few years back. It's been 6 months since I am working in this asylum, but I never saw anyone near that building. When I was in my thoughts, I saw a person's shadow in that room. I thought it must be the missing patient, so I gathered up all my courage and went to that building. As I entered the building, I experienced a sharp drop in temperature. It was all dark inside. I hurriedly started walking up the stairs and started searching for the room from where light was coming from. With all my courage, I opened the door. I saw something which horrified me to my core. Patient was lying down on a bed and a doctor was standing beside him. As I looked closely, his eyes were all white. He was covered with blood. I started shivering in fear. Then, doctor turned around. His face was covered with mask. Only his eyes were visible. They were still, not moving at all. He was holding a scalpel in his hand. Shut the door. Can't you see I am operating? I quickly shut the door and ran out of the building without thinking. I reached my cabin while gasping for air. I saw other nurses and security guards there. We found the patient. Where were you? One of the nurses asked. I told them everything. They were shocked. Two security guards went to that building to search, but they found nothing. After a month, I quitted my job, but to this day, I still get flashbacks of that scene, and they give me same scary feeling I felt that day. And I still wonder if what I saw that day was just a illusion of my mind or reality. My name is James. This incident happened with me 10 years ago. At that time I used to live in countryside area. Not many people lived there and it was also rare to see new faces there. One evening when I came back home after work, I saw a man and woman walking around in my neighborhood. I am not quite sure if they were couple or not. They both were limping. Something was strange about them. I brushed it off and went inside. I took a quick shower and sat beside a window. I started sipping my coffee while reading a book. Time passed by. I fall asleep. By the time I got up, it was night already. I stood up to go upstairs to my room, but that's when I saw someone standing in my lawn. It was too dark outside, but I was able to figure out they were the same people whom I saw in the evening. They were staring towards me. I was confused and somewhere scared. I quickly pulled the curtains down. I stood there observing them for another 5 minutes, but they made no move. They just stood there like statues. I just went to my room and fell asleep. A week passed by. I was already forgotten about those people. I never saw them again after that night. One evening, when I was walking by a nearby graveyard, I saw a crowd of people gathered. What happened? I asked one of the persons standing there. Two bodies are missing since last week. They were of a couple who died years ago in an unfortunate accident, he said, and handed me a poster. When I looked at that poster, my eyes widened. My blood ran cold. I quickly recognized them. They were the same people whom I saw that night. If they were dead years ago, how they were walking, why they came to my house, what they wanted from me. It's been 10 years. My questions still have no answers. As those people, or I should say, those dead people, were never found. My name is Jenny. This incident happened when I was in high school. Our principal came in our classroom and introduced us to our new history teacher. I really liked my former teacher. I never wanted anybody else to take his place. Weeks passed by. I started liking my new teacher. She was very helpful and patient. One afternoon, she asked me if I can stay back and help her with some work. I had nothing much to do that day, so I agreed. After finishing work, she offered to drop me home, but I refused as my mother was coming to pick me up. After that day, she started asking me to stay back more frequently. And I never mind as she treated me well and I was learning a lot of new things. This went by for about 2 weeks or so, until when one afternoon she asked me to stay back and help her with some files, and I agreed as usual. After school, when I was going towards her cabin, I saw her through the window of her cabin. She was putting something in a cup. I found it little suspicious, but I ignored it, thinking it will be nothing and I am just overthinking. Can I come in? I asked. Yes, yes, come in, take a seat, she said. I entered her cabin and sat down on a chair. She gave me some files and told me to start work. Everything was going fine, nothing unusual. Then I made coffee for you. Have it, she said. I was about to take it, but then I noticed that it was the same cup as before. I became suspicious, so I decided not to drink it. Somewhere I started getting scared at this point. So I decided to leave as quickly as possible. Can I go home? I'm not feeling well, I said. Okay, you can go, but finish your coffee first, she said. I don't feel like drinking it, I said. She was glaring at me. I was getting more and more scared. I should leave, I said, and started walking away without sparing her another glance. But I could feel her eyes on me. I called my mom and told her everything and asked her to come and pick me up. I hung up the call and started walking towards the exit. But then, Jenny, I turned back and saw her standing there. The way she was glaring at me, I could tell that she was suspicious of me. I started running away from her and came out of the school building. I felt relieved. I saw my mother's car and went to her. She called the cops. They searched the whole building and found her. Later, police found out that she used to practice black magic. They found a lot of questionable things in her cabin. She also confessed that she spiked my coffee so that she can use me to practice her black magic tricks. My name is Kyla. This happened when I was a senior in high school. It was a summer night. I was wide awake to work on my school project. It was hot outside and I was sweating a lot, but I tried to concentrate on my work as I had to submit my project next day. At around 1 am, I got a little hungry and decided to take a small break. I went downstairs to the kitchen and took out some snacks and then came back to my room. I sat down on my bed and started munching my snacks while scrolling through my social media. After about good 30 minutes, I stood up to continue my work. That's when my eyes fell on the figure standing outside my house on the street. I wasn't sure if it was man or woman as it was too dark. The weird thing was, the figure was standing still without any movement, as if it was frozen. When I was busy in my thoughts, figure started approaching my house. That's when I was able to see clearly who the person was. It was a girl, Jess, one of my classmates. She was a quiet girl. She nearly had no friends, and I never saw her talking. She kept glancing towards me without even blinking her eyes once. Hey, how's you doing? I asked. But she didn't respond. Her figure appeared more fragile and tired than usual. Her face was paler. I got little worried and went downstairs to her. Hey, do you need something? I asked. But she was silent. Suddenly, she started looking for something in her pocket and then handed me a card. Right after that, she started walking away from me. I was confused. I called her name multiple times, but she never responded, and slowly her figure vanished in darkness. I came back to my room and started scanning the card she gave me. It was a weird card. A devil was stabbing a girl with a creepy grin plastered on his face. It creeped me out. I decided to confront her next day. Next day, I woke up early. I got ready and went to school. Since last night, thought of Jess and the card she gave me never left my mind. As I reached school, I started looking for Jess everywhere, but she was nowhere to be found. Have you seen Jess? I asked one of my friends. She frowned and looked at me with a confusing look. She got murdered. Somebody stabbed her last night, she said. I creeped out. My stomach dropped. It's been 5 years since then, but cops haven't found who stabbed her that night. I never told anyone about that night's incidents. But to this day, I still wonder why she gave me that card. Did she wanted to tell me something? And most important, why me? My name is Leah. This happened few years back. I used to live in a shared dorm with two other girls, Kate and Maggie. Let's say they weren't as friendly as I expected them. They used to pull my leg all the time, which I never liked. One night when I was laying down on my bed, one of my roommates came to me. Hey, do you want to join us? We are going to a nearby club, she said. I had nothing much to do that night, so I agreed. We were a total of 5 people. Me, my two roommates, and two other girls. We enjoyed our time there. They all were acting friendly for the first time. I was happy. At about 12, Kate called an Uber and we hopped in to head back. After about 20 minutes of drive, Kate asked the driver to stop in middle of nowhere. I looked around. Where are we? I asked. I want to take you somewhere, Kate said. I agreed. After 5 minutes walk, we were standing in middle of an abandoned building. It looked like haunted house, the one we usually see in horror movies. Let's check this from inside, Maggie said. We switched on our mobile phone lights and went in. Inside of the building was huge. Only source of light were our mobile phone. This is a perfect place for hide and seek. Let's play, one of the girls said. I also thought it would be fun, so I agreed. I will be the finder, Kate said. Rest four of us went in different directions to hide. I was trying to find a hiding spot. That's when I came across to a staircase which was leading to the basement. I went downstairs thinking it would be a great place to hide. I hid behind an old mirror and switched off the light so nobody could find me. Now there was pitch darkness around me. I was able to hear giggling sound and faint footsteps of other girls. Suddenly everything went silent. I was getting more and more anxious with every passing minute, so I decided to go upstairs and look for others. I tried calling them, but there was no signal. I hurriedly ran towards the door and tried to open it, but it was locked. I started banging on door while calling for help. At this point I was sobbing mess. My vision started getting blurry. I felt dizzy. That's when somebody tapped on my shoulder. I turned around and saw a pair of eyes in darkness. That was the last thing I saw before fainting. I opened my eyes in a hospital. My teachers and other classmates were standing around me. One of my classmates saw me and the other girls leaving that night. And when I didn't came back with them, when she became suspicious, told one of our teachers everything. Those girls had planned to lock me in that abandoned building as a prank. They later apologized to me saying it was just a prank. When I asked everyone about the other person whose eyes I saw inside, they frowned and looked at me with a confusing look. They told me there was no other person in that building. But I am definite I saw a pair of eyes before fainting. I question that to myself till now. My name is Ben. This incident happened with me last year on Christmas. I was going to my parents' house for celebrating holidays with them. They lived about 5 hours drive away from my workplace. It was almost midnight when suddenly my car stopped. I tried to restart it many times, but it was of no use. I thought about calling my dad for help, but my mobile battery was already out. There was no other car around, so there was not much hope for help. So I decided to just start walking towards my destination. About 30 minutes passed when suddenly a car stopped beside me. Then driver rolled down the window. It was a lady. We shared an awkward eye contact. Then she broke the silence and asked, "Do you need any help?" I was tired and very eager to reach home. So without giving it another thought, "Yes, can you give me lift?" I asked. "Yes, come in," she said. I was little worried, but I had no other option. 10 minutes were already past. I was feeling a bit uncomfortable. She kept glaring at me. Then I heard some noise coming from car trunk. At this point I was getting more and more suspicious of her. Suddenly, when I looked in the mirror, I was shocked. I saw somebody's hand on back seat. I froze. My blood ran cold. "You can drop me here. My house is nearby," I said nervously. She looked at me with a creepy look on her face. Her eyes were turned red. My breathing hitched. I tried to open the door, but it was locked. I started pushing the door while screaming for help. I was numb at this point. She stopped the car and gave me a scary look. "Can't you keep quiet for some time?" she said. I pushed her hardly and somehow she fainted. I quickly unlocked the car and started running towards my house. I kept looking back to check if she was following me. I reached my house and called 911. When police reached that spot, there was nobody to be found. They speculated that maybe she gained her consciousness back and drove away. Police showed me a picture. It was the same lady. Then they told me that she is a serial killer and she was running away after killing a couple that night. To this day, I still wonder what would have happened if she had not fallen unconscious that day.